Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. We are again back with the lovely Laura Berky and her word power. Today, we're exploring the fascinating power of words by focusing on the word sense, as in the phrase, that makes sense. Many people think of this as a purely intellectual or analytical process, but what if I told you it's actually an action of the body? By shifting your understanding of this word, you'll unlock a whole new level of clarity and connection, one that integrates your mind and body in a way that transforms how you perceive and understand everything. Let's discover how to truly make sense on a deeper level. Laura, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Chris.
So tell us, what's going on with the word sense?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me that people use the word sense in the way that they do. So let me just kind of reiterate why I show up is because of that, how you use your words. And so sense, do you recognize that kind of inner dialogue or among yourself or with other people outwardly, like that doesn't make sense? Or can you make sense of this? Have you ever used and uttered those kind of phrases?
Actually, quite a bit lately, watching world events unfold. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I even said to you, and I meant it literally, like in the workplace or, in any situation, and I was serious and I said, Chris, make sense of this. What would you think to do? If I said, make sense of this, what would you think to do as a reaction to that request of mine?
Well, my immediate response would be to try and explain it.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
And this is how we are in a way, when I say not using a word well, we're not using it in its most empowering way. Again, I always want to reiterate this. You can use the word sense the way you've been using sense for the rest of your life. Absolutely. And you're going to be just fine. What I want to offer and illuminate today, that there's another way to use this word that I have seen, I've experienced, where you're going to have more power, more energy if you use it sometimes or more often in this other way.
And what is that other way?
I'm so glad you asked. So here's the very common way people have been using the word. Use your common sense. It goes like this, or that doesn't make sense. Scratch your head, like I just used with you. Like, make sense of this. And how most people are using that word is as an analytical process or experience. But think about it. I don't know how to set this up. If you just look at the word and it's not in any context, sense, what is sense? What is sense? It's the first thing that comes up
There's
for
no
you.
context.
Yeah.
Right. The first thing that comes up for me is actually the sense of, perceiving something.
It really, think about it. What we were given as human beings are the five senses to make sense of the world that we live in. So we were given these channels or these systems so that we could interact with what was around us and come to some understanding about it. So think about what our senses are. They're sensory, I don't know, vehicles or whatever you want to call it. So your eyes, you can see, your ears, you can hear, your tongue, you can taste, your skin and fingers or whatever your body you can feel. And so sensory is really kind of like where the use of the word make sense of this even comes from. So what first happened in man was his sense of things. He could sense weather, danger, hunger, sickness, or whatever. So that's really where this word comes from, is our original form of sensoriness, which is, what do I feel? What am I experiencing to know what's happening? So that's really the base, the foundation of sense. It's what is it you're feeling? And what has happened over time is it's evolved, and we now more use it as a upper head. It's a head thing. It's what do I think about that? What are my thoughts about that? Versus what do I feel about that? So I'm going to stop there. How is that landing on you?
Well, I'm noticing that there's a lot more uses of the word sense. I mean, now there's three, right? Because we have sense, which is like understanding. Then we have sense, which is like perception. And then we have sense, which is what we just had there, which was feeling, which is different from perception and explaining. So it's quite a versatile word.
And so the thing I want to point out that is where you can, if you go back to what you had said at the top of the show here, halfway through the introduction, that when you understand this word better, it really will empower a sense of clarity in you to really understanding, which is really what we're all really aiming to do in anything, is I want to understand myself better. I want to understand the other person. I want to understand what's going on in the world right now. That if you don't just think that making sense is an analytical thing, but you drop down and you utilize your senses, your feelings about it. What is the feeling I have about that? And we do this already. So like when somebody says, if I was to explain something to you, we're both parents. So then maybe I explain to you in a conversation, oh, I'm just trying to kind of, bond with my teenage daughter now and whatever. And, I feel this or I feel that. You might respond, yeah, I get the sense that it's hard for you, which is probably you saying, I've felt that too. And that would be you using your actual sensory, your physical, emotional sensory to understand me. And then maybe even because you understand from the neck down what you would have to offer in support, or opinion or suggestion would actually land better. It would actually be a better dyad between the two of us because you are really understanding, because understanding's in the body, because you can feel, I know what she's going through. Does that make sense? Versus just being all overly developed in your thinking and using just the small part of our whole system.
Well, I mean, it is true that when I say that something makes sense, but I have no kind of, I don't know, personal connection to it, it does feel different than when I say, oh, that makes sense, when I can tie it to another feeling.
Yes. So here's how it gets really useful. Let's go to an example of like someone you're in a relationship with. It could be your spouse, or it could be somebody at work. These would be common places where often we can have challenging situations. And so let's just use a person you're in an intimate relationship with, and they do something that you don't do, or you don't agree with, that doesn't make sense to you. And it probably doesn't make sense to you in this situation because it feels like that doesn't feel right, or I would never do that because that feels wrong. But you look at them and you're like, and so then you might be thinking or speaking to them in this sense, like having a disagreement with them, like you are resisting and countering what they're doing because it's not making you feel good. But the way that then you want to speak to them about it is using all intellect, reasoning, pragmatism, instead of, and here's where you could use the word sense. As you see your partner doing what they're doing or saying what they're saying, or you're not even in the same room, they did something and it got under your skin a little bit. The way to use sense would be, here's a few different ways you could do it. What must they be feeling? This is like a really powerful one. What must they be feeling that they would have done that, or that they say that? You won't really fully know because you'd only know if you ask them, what on earth were you thinking that had you decide to do that? But you could, and the whole point is if you go down there, you could start with, well, if I was ever just to leave the house and not say goodbye, what would I be feeling? I'd probably be feeling rushed. I'm late, or I'm distracted. I'm not thinking, versus what the other person could interpret. Oh my God, they just left and didn't care to say goodbye. How rude. They just dismissed me. They didn't care about me. So, but if you drop down into sense, like I want to make sense of this, I want to feel this out. What was I feeling? Could be one way. I was feeling dismissed. Why was I feeling dismissed? Why did that feel so uncomfortable? And that would probably take you somewhere informative and helpful. Or you could say, what must have they been feeling that they would make that choice? And maybe one of the options would be, well, I was kind of crabby last night, and maybe they felt a little, hurt or whatever. And so they just kind of felt like awkward or uncomfortable to come and say goodbye to me today. So it just gives you more instead of relying simply on this little area, again, of our whole system to get more out of it, and then actually to then navigate yourself forward in a much more empowered way.
Actually, looking at that example, just rifling through all my little data banks there and all the different files and all the different situations and scenarios. One thing that I do notice about what you're saying is that if, and I've didn't really notice a difference, but in the times when I sort of did what you were saying, it was easier to have compassion to let it go rather than just rationalize it. Because I guess you're right. I mean, we weren't, or I wasn't, aligning both of those things. Would that be right?
Well, how does that feel to you? Does that feel right or more right or
Oh, it feels more right.
yeah? And there really isn't, I'm never presenting it's right or wrong to use this word or how you use this word. I just want you to use the word. So this word exists. Yes, to some degree, making sense is an analytical experience. It is, but it's also a whole lot more. And so what you just kind of outed was, oop, I can use my thinking faculty because you have to, and we always are anyway. But when I kind of go and really feel, which is really where it all started, it came from sensory, our senses. And if I go to really the foundation of that word, ooh, I notice that what opens up is some compassion. Well, that's always a good thing. But what opened up was maybe feeling more grounded or slowing down a bit or not, kind of going off in a direction that wouldn't serve me or them. And then there isn't then now a ripple effect going in that direction versus the other direction. And so it's just useful. And that's the whole point.
I like that. And that actually ties into one of our other episodes on being useful versus serving. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
like
Yes,
so,
exactly.
just as a side, if you haven't seen that episode, you might want to go check that one out because it was interesting as well.
Yeah.
And actually, just looking at the time, wow, I'm sensing we're getting close to the time here.
I am too.
Once again, thank you for this lovely little tidbit of information, and can't wait to have you back and do the next word.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks a lot, and to everybody else, tune in next time. And just remember, if you can't, find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, just try and be that motivation or inspiration for someone else. And catch Laura again next week.